morning. Can you hear me? Okay, that's fine. Good morning, and on behalf of the Biennale and of the 68th Mostra Internazionale d'Arte Cinematografica, welcome to this press conference. Thank you for being here. And welcome, most of all, to our distinguished guests. We have the two directors of the program we have screened yesterday evening for the Orizzonti competition. For my right, the director of Modern No. 2, Mirai Mizue. And the director of Kotoko, Shinya Tsukamoto. I have the pleasure to co-moderate this panel with my colleague Roberto Novielli, and of course we are here most of all, and the directors are here most of all to answer your questions. So just please raise your hands, and we have a microphone for your question, which you can ask either in English, Italian, and Japanese as well. So we already have a question. We would like to maybe start with questions for the short film, for Mirai first, if there are any in particular. Otherwise, just to also ask him something, I will start with a technical, but in his case is a very relevant information. What you saw yesterday evening looks like computer-generated images, but it's definitely not. It's a result of a very different and more old-style type of animation work. So I would like to ask him maybe how many drawings exactly he did for that film, and that I think is a good starting point to understand how the film was made. Sorry, una domanda per le interpreti. Possiamo fare dall'inglese verso il giapponese o solo dall'italiano verso il giapponese? Ok, ok. 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 Perché vedevo che il pubblico non ha le cuffie. Quindi lui non ha sentito la domanda ancora. Allora, rifaccio la domanda in italiano, se per cortesia potete ritradurla.
Well, I will repeat the question in Italian. This is a technical information. Well, yesterday it was not computerized images, but it is a drawing work. There are more than 4,000 designs for Modern No. 2. How did you work with pencil and paper to create this film?
こんにちは。アニメーション作家の水江未来と申します。僕のモダン
Good morning, I'm Mirai Mireze.
ナンバー2というぐらい
My modern number 2. Well, 2 means that, well, there is also number 1. I designed all the parts on paper by hand, and following the lines of the little squares on the paper, I was able to draw the images. Usually when I realize my work, I never use CGI. All the movements are realized by hand. So it is a sort of hand animation. Today we are, well, all animation today are made using CGI. And I consider this kind of manual work not only like something antique, but something that is realized through a new and modern movement. And as far as colors are concerned, well, they are inspired also by our Japanese traditional works. And what I wanted to do is exactly this. And as far as paper is concerned, it is Japanese rice paper. What about the work with music? I remember some avant-garde works about music. Is there, well, there is a strong link between music and images. Can you tell me where this work comes from? How do you follow the music while drawing? Music, well, there is usual Mr. Tooth who does the music. I usually work with him. I've always worked with him. On the base of his music, I realize animations. So we usually cooperate. And about model number 2, we started with the model number 1 with its music. It was a much slower rhythm, and so I wanted to create a second version with a higher quickness. So starting from the visions I gave to Tooth with the number 1, I asked him to make the music faster, and this is how our cooperation started. So we tried to use a correct rhythm for music for my images.
Io aggiungo che a me Moderno 1 sembrava già veloce abbastanza.
Model number 1 seemed quite quick to me, and I was amazed by the second version. I'll ask to think, how did you pass this summer? Well, my works are realized, as I said before, on squared paper. And in order to reduce the rhythm, I use just one square, and to make the movement quicker, or the line uses 2 or 3 little squares. So, for example, for the speed of number 1, well, the speed of number 1 was quite even, while number 2 has many variations in speed, and sometimes there were also like bounces. And so I consider that animation must not necessarily tell an history, but the role of animation is to be funny, to make people feel well. And this is what I wanted to do, with my thoughts. The first question for Tsukamoto Shinya has to do with Kotoko, a Japanese singer who is quite engaged from the social and artistic point of view. How did you cooperate with this singer? And we know that it is a quite long friendship, because she realized also soundtrack of one of your formal films. Well, with Koko, well, her songs, well, I liked her songs, and not only because she is Kotoko, but because her songs have a heart, a soul, and so I can see that her songs reflect exactly her personality and her thoughts, her philosophy. And so I've always thought that it would have been good to cooperate with her. So at the beginning I asked her to compose a music for Vital. 7 years ago, when 7 years ago my mother died, and suddenly Kotoko arrived in my life, and so this was a chance to cooperate. So usually I take a long time to realize a film, but in this case it was different because I met Kotoko and I listened to what she says, and I made interviews with her. So I concretely realized the topic about which I wanted to build a film, to realize a film, and maybe at the basis there was the death of my mother, but with this emotion, with this feeling, I tried to insert her experiences too. So Koko's personal experiences, she lost her child, and for her history, well, I knew there was something that wasn't clear, and so I wanted to know and understand the reason of all this, for all this. Once she sent me a photo that was taken with his child, with her child, sleeping on her bed, and he was a child in his natural environment, familiar environment, and I felt something like a distance. So I wanted to understand if how was this distance between the mother and the child, and I tried to understand this distance, and I wanted to fill this distance. And so, well, I just put together all my my path towards the film, but this is more or less the path we ran through for this film. So, as you know, the 11th of March we had a great disaster in Japan, and the day before starting our filming, we went to a temple to pray for not having some accidents. But the day after there was this disaster. So from this episode I felt something dramatic, something like a destiny. And just going back to Kotoko, I felt from her tellings, I felt a sort of tender love towards her relatives, and this is what I wanted to represent in my film. A last thing I want to add is with ballet. 65 years ago, we had a memory, a dramatic memory of the end of the war, and I think it not being excluded that we are going towards this new kind of disaster.
日本のシネマトゥデイの中山と申します。コッコさんといえば自傷行為のこととか拒食症のことを自分で語ってますよね。それがこうやって映画に入れるということはコッコさんにとってもすごく神経質なことになるだろうし、成長にもしかしたら追体験することっていうのはすごく辛いことだと思うんですが、それ自体を入れようということになったのはどういう経緯からなんでしょうか。
But in this film, well, making her problems so clear for the audience, how did you decided to do this? And I would like to know the reason why you decided to highlight this this sort of disease of hers.
最初はあれ、はい、ごめんなさい。僕が今度逆だったんですね。さっきのが聞こえなくて今聞こえちゃう。はい。ボタンが。
At the beginning, I was.
僕もちょっとその距離がですね。
I'm sorry, I was hesitating because I wasn't sure about telling about this distance. But I didn't know if to really analyze these problems. I wanted to be closer to her. In order to have problems. So this is something she wants to do, and so I think that well, this has some kind of meaning for her. I didn't want to force her, but I wrote a first draft copy, and I made Koko see this copy. And I asked her if she agreed about it, and in order to go on with my film, she agreed. So let's say that also there's this masochism aspect of her life. Well, she wanted to show this problem to the audience. So doing this, I represent a real image of her personality, Koko's personality. This is the basis of our work, and something that differentiates this work from all the other works I've done before. Just personal curiosity. I think that in Tsukamoto cinema there are recurring themes. Well, I think that in Tsukamoto's cinema there are, well, even if there are great changes, Kotoko is a new kind of film. Anyway, I think there are some recurring topics, as it usually happens. And I would like to ask if, in this case, if the theme of the double is his characteristic, because this is recurring in all his works. In this case, the doubleness is a visual, the double vision of the woman, but not only.
難しい質問をいつも確かにもう僕の映画はいつも二重のテーマ、ソーセージの時も双子の話で、その時も
Well, really, in my film, we usually have a double element. For example, the twins, or contrary elements in characters. I think that, well, I have the allowance to say this. Well, Koko's experience is double in some way because she sees two different things instead of one. My interpretation was something positive and something negative. This is my personal interpretation. I'm not sure that this is the same for her. So, Kotoko had this kind of experience, this terrible experience, and she has been represented this way with my imagination. The strongest violence I wanted to highlight, and I did it with this doubleness.
Una domanda più di ordine, diciamo, tecnico.
And just some more technical question. Kotoko was realized by both Tsukamoto and Koko. And Koko wasn't just an actress, but I know they share the interest in painting, in creating. So I wanted to know how they work together to realize all the phases of this film. Well, let's say that well, in the end, there are representation of the characters, but as we can understand from the final part, all this is mixed, but I don't remember how we realized all this very well. I don't remember. Anyway, well, technically speaking, all I have done as a director, as a screenwriter, and etc. I had a usual role, but Koko knows the technical aspects quite well, so she helped me a lot. And usually I create my films by myself without any help. But sometimes this doesn't happen. I can have some assistance, but anyway, usually I realize my films by myself. Good morning, I'm Kayama Sato from Japanese Review. I can ask to Tsukamoto, well, the character well, the character of the director that appears suddenly, but that disappears suddenly too. And so I would like to know if this character was a sort of hallucination by Koko, or if since you had a director that was also an artist and a writer, if you, well, you were creating your personal character, and so he was getting closer to this poor girl, but at a certain point, the danger of using this character is evident, since it is a character of the book. So, well, this is quite a nasty question. Anyway, I can go on with quoting the question they asked before, which was the impression, the Koko's impression after having watched the film.
あ、そっか、もういいんですか。あ、ぼかしの方は。
Well, as far as the first question is concerned,
急にいなくなってなぜって去られた方は思うんじゃないかなと思うんですけど。一応僕田中なんで、
when someone dies suddenly,
でもさっきご指摘あったのはみんなそうですって実は言いたい。
Their friends or relatives cannot understand why. But I acted as Tanaka, who disappears, and so obviously the feelings are different.
今度この話になるまでにいっぱい企画を考えたんですけど、その中にはまさにそういう話も。
The common point is concerned the baby. Well, Tanaka, the writer, who disappears, this character can be something like an overlapping, so they could also be the same personality. I had this idea to realize another film, so the project of another film, but obviously this is history that is usually told in films. So it could also be a sort of illusion. But if it were such a perfect personality who can accept everything and has also a great artistic capability, well, this would have been too much for me. So I could go on living with this person that is so excellent. So I put this feeling for her in my film, but she just played this aspect, maybe because Tanaka could not stand sufferings and pains she had to, he had to suffer from Kotoko. So maybe these two interpretations are both possible. But as we said before, overlapping the image of the writer and the image of the child is a very interesting interpretation. And as far as Koko's sensations are concerned, well, usually she doesn't say what she felt, but I think she enjoyed it. So, also because, well, history is a story made by episodes that were really lived by her, and so I think she could feel her personal life, her personal path, and this is the reason why I think she liked the film. Well, if there is some more time and if there are no questions, I will come back to the earthquake. In 2 days there will be the 6 months anniversary, and above all the Fukushima radiations. Well, I think many things changed in Japanese culture and in Japanese life, and I would like to know if, well, I can feel in Kotoko that many things have been interpreted of that anxiety of the after Fukushima, and especially in Koko's personality. And you were talking about fear and tension of all the things that can happen, or sort of unmanageable destiny, and also for relationship with children. Well, in your opinion, obviously.
もうこれは濃密にあったんですね。先ほどもちょびっと言ったかもしれないんですけど。
Well, there is this deep link between disasters and film, because the very day we decided to start filming,
母さんとかは子供に対して全く
earthquake happened.
ものすごい神経質になるその2つのがはっきり分かれちゃったのがびっくりするぐらい2つ
people that are so sensitive that they really entered, they really panicked. So, well, there were also someone else who, well, it's not true that they don't care about it, but they don't think about it every day. So we saw the society split in two. One part is so sensitive, and the other part is quite not caring for this. And so living in a direct way this sensitivity of afraid people for children, for example, for their children, they have to care after their children. All this was missing for a part of society. So this is something that makes me really shocked, and this fear was a driving force for my film. I think this is a value that is felt by everybody. Is there a question for a last answer? A last question? Is there time for a last question? Sorry.
Grazie. Al di là dei diversi piani appunto del film, il percorso femminile della perdita di sé, la relazione madre-bambino, la violenza, il discorso sociale, mi ha provocato il penultimo intervento che ha fatto proprio il regista sul discorso del fatto che lui è scomparso praticamente. Io ho vissuto una cosa del genere, cioè lei era innamorata nel momento in cui veramente stava trasformandosi, c'era tutta una serie di situazioni che ritorna a casa e in quel momento lì lui va via, cioè mi chiedo quanto siamo veramente vicini alla relazione di parità nella coppia, cioè nel senso che proprio lui regge la parità, nel senso che nel momento in cui bisognava accoglierla, sostenerla, allora c'era, nel momento in cui lei potrebbe uscire fuori, cioè ho vissuto anche questa parte qui in tutto quello che è, e lo ringrazio comunque perché è un film straordinario.
I can anyway thank him because this is an extraordinary film.
まあ確かに僕が田中だったらあそこで行かないかもしれないですよね。やっぱねせっかくそこまで来たんで。ただこれは逆にその
maybe if I really were Tanaka, maybe I would have stayed there because I was able to create something like this. But talking with Koko, well, she's always afraid that something precious, something important could suddenly disappear. And so I tried to understand her loss. A loss of feelings or her fear. What I wanted to represent is exactly this. Koko said that he disappeared because he could stand the pains no more. So personally, I think she's right, but the audience can interpret these meanings. If this feeling, the reason this is stronger, I think this is why the film had a success.
Ecco, allora io ringrazio tantissimo gli ospiti e naturalmente lo faccio, mi sovrappongo al curatore Sergio Fant.
Well, this is also on behalf of Sergio Fant, and we hope seeing again Tsukamoto here because this is his sixth time here in Venice, so maybe he is quite at home.
Okay,
thank you for being here.
Grazie.
Thank you. And I think that both our guests will be here today afternoon and maybe also tomorrow. So if you want to interview them, you can go to the press office. Thank you.